I am quite happy to see the level of discussion and interest that we have seen in St. Jude all of a sudden. It is amazing that this is a project that went on for the last 7 years, and so little focus was placed on that facility. Maybe St. Jude is now getting what it rightly deserves: the attention, the public outrage at what is there. And I know that a team of about 40 doctors visited St. Jude on Friday. And the preliminary reports that I got was in keeping with where the government is thinking. People have made it an emotional discussion. People have made it something about, you have an agenda. It's not about an agenda. This fiasco at St. Jude was not caused by Guy Joseph. But everybody wants to make this discussion a discussion about what Guy Joseph did and what he intends to do, or what the government intends to do. People need to move away from this. And we need to deal with the reality. Because the former Prime Minister, this project has always resided in the office of the Prime Minister. Not in the Ministry of Health, not in the Ministry of Infrastructure, not in any other ministry. When it started under the UWP government, it started under the office of the Ministry of Economic Development, which was the same office with the office of the Prime Minister. Now let me put this in perspective. After the fire of 2009, the hospital was moved into a makeshift facility, the stadium. There was need for a quick response. The government at the time took the necessary steps to get the project on going as quickly as possible. Would you say that all the proper steps were followed? Not necessarily, because you are responding to an emergency situation. The time that you would have to sit down and plan and organize a normal project would not happen. And that is important for what I will say further on in the interview. So the government made a decision to proceed with the repairs. By Dr. Kenny Anthony's own admission in his interview in 2015, he indicated that the original cost was 30 million. He expected it was revised to 47 million. And then he indicated that he believes that the project will end up costing about $60 million. But we would end up with a state-of-the-art facility for the $60 million that would be spent. At the time, Dr. Anthony, as the Minister of Finance, who signed on every one of the direct awards for St. Jude, we had spent $100 million. Let me not say we. He had commissioned contracts for about $100 million on St. Jude. But he was saying that it is expected that we would spend $60 million and we would have a state-of-the-art facility. $118 million later, this is what we have, what the media went to visit. And people want to make this a political decision, a political discussion. That is gross incompetence. And for any St. Lucian, any right-thinking St. Lucian, to allow a politician to cause them to behave in the manner that I see people behaving over this project says a lot about us as a people. I am ashamed of what we have there. I am ashamed that I am associated with government and that we are allowing this to pass as a project executed by a government. And for people not to be enraged, people want to be enraged about we saying that this is what we have to do to fix St. Jude's. And they are not enraged at $118 million being spent, and this is what we have there. Just because they have a political agenda or political axe to grind. I mean, is that what we have become as a people? Can politicians make people so stupid in this country?
Question, Mr. Minister. At what point did we move, because I've covered that over the years, from 2009, the fire and all boom, the reconstruction phase. It moved from 14 million. At one point, there was something, 500,000 was being, in fact, before 40 million, it was something like 500,000 for repairs.
Mm-hmm.
That was quoted in the early days. And then it moved into the millions.
Mm-hmm.
At what point, what would have caused it to move from talk of about hundreds of thousands of dollars into the millions we have today? Were the plans changed, the reconstruction plans, were they changed, and by whom were they changed? And do we have those plans? I don't get it.
That is the problem. There is no plan. You see, I don't know why people cannot get this. There is no plan.
So how are we then, if there is no plan, how we could sign off on contracts in millions of dollars without a plan as to how...
You would have to ask the ministers who signed it. I cannot answer that question. People want me to answer the questions that I can answer, I am answering. I am saying to you that once you change the scope of a project by more than 10%, whatever plans you had must be revised. So let's understand that. If there was a plan for the $30 million, if you change that by 10%, 10% of 30 million would be what? 3 million? So if you revise the scope of the works that you would have spent an additional 3 million, it calls for a revised plan. Now think of from 30 to 47 to 60 to 100 to 118, 136, 150, 166, and the last one $176 million from 30 million. So you tell me how many percentages have we changed by, and whether there was need for an entirely new plan. And I've been saying, for me to proceed with the project, I now had to get an engineer to go and do as-built drawings. Go and see what's on the ground and draw a plan. If there was a plan, why would we do that? The people who had the plan, I have called on them, those who say they had a plan, I have called on them on several occasions, give us the plan. So when Dr. Kenny Anthony, as Minister of Finance, was signing direct award after direct award, he should have known as Prime Minister what the plans were. So when he wants to have a meeting, these are the things that he needs to tell the people of St. Lucia. Not to come and try and make it look like we want to destroy St. Jude's. They have already destroyed St. Jude's. They don't need my help to destroy St. Jude. The management of the project destroyed St. Jude's.
Question, Mr. Minister. When the Stephenson King administration left government in 2011, was there a plan for the hospital?
As I indicated to you before, there was an initial plan for refurbishing the ward, the west wing that was damaged by the fire. There was an initial plan. Part of the requirements of that was that the consultant should, on the first page of his contract, is that it should have DCA approval. Did it have DCA approval? No, it did not have. So there was something on paper, but unofficially, without the approval of DCA, I don't know how you can categorize it as a plan.
But whatever you had, was there a cost to it? Whatever was there at the end when...
Well, if a contract was issued for 30 million, it means that there was a cost to it. The figure was not pulled out from the sky.
Yeah, so it was 40 million. That's what I want to know.
Yes.
It was.
When the project started, it was started as a $30 million project. And people must stop playing this game about blaming this government and that government. I can tell you, initially, before the report and I went through all of the information, I thought that both governments were equally to be blamed. And I believe that we have to take responsibility for what we did in our time. But when the Stephenson King administration left office, we knew what our commitment was to the hospital. What is there was not done under the UWP government. And you can see the report shows every time the changes were made, every time the price was revised. Sometimes in one day they would grant 2 or 3 direct awards of 5, 6, 7, 8 million, you know, in one day for different phases of the project. All of these were signed by Dr. Anthony as the Minister of Finance.
So, sir, what's the way forward now? All this been there. What's the way forward? When can the people get a hospital?
And that is why I said people need to take note of what I said about responding to an emergency situation. We were responding to the fire with an emergency situation. 7 years later, I have inherited a situation where I am once again in an emergency situation. Is that what passes for governance in this country? 7 years later, we are in a worse crisis because the stadium is falling apart. The makeshift hospital is challenging to work and we have no facility to go to. And everybody wants to behave as if Guy Joseph did that.
Which is why coming Mr. Minister. As you said, in emergency situation, crisis situation, makeshift hospital is now crumbling. We don't know yet when we're going to finish the new St. Jude. And we cannot let the makeshift just crumble or roof fall down or anything like that. We have to get out before it happens or else fix it. So what are we going to do now? Are we strengthening perhaps the Denry Hospital to bring those people over? Are we strengthening the Soufriere Hospital to bring those people over? Because as far as you and I can see, we have no clue when St. Jude's going to open. No clue whatsoever. So what are we going to do now with the makeshift?
We are going to do some repairs at the stadium. We have committed to this. We have to take down the existing roof structure. I met with the board of St. Jude's. We have committed to redoing the electricals in there and to fix the plumbing. That does not mean that we are fixing this to leave the people there indefinitely. So I do not want people to misunderstand what we are saying. We are still exploring all of the possibilities of doing something with the existing St. Jude building to at least make it the institution that we can move to in the interim. I cannot guarantee you that this is going to happen as I speak now because of the logistical problems that we have there. And people need to take away the emotion from this and be real. Can we pass this as a hospital in the 21st century? Can we go down that road? Is it fair to the people of St. Lucia? And I agreed with the people who say, those who can afford, every time they get sick, they pay their passage and they go overseas. But they want to tell you state-of-the-art hospital. How many of them will go to visit a doctor there? That is the reality that we are faced with. And I want to know that if I'm involved in a hospital and I'm involved in the process and I have responsibility, that I build a facility that is good enough that when I get sick, I'm happy to go there. Not to send other people there and to pay my passage and go other places. But the reality is we have to respond to all three situations that we are faced with. We have to finish the existing building. We may have to alter the use of the building. because too much money has gone into this to allow it to go to waste. Secondly, we have to do some remedial work at the stadium so that for the extended time that the people are staying there, it can be more comfortable for them. Not permanently. And then we are exploring the other possibilities of, do we need a new facility altogether? I assure you that based on the discussions with the Prime Minister and in the Prime Minister's own interview, we are hoping that by the end of this month, we can have some clear direction and we can make some clear pronouncements as to what is